to describe it. All right. Is it Nick or is it the ownership and the front office?
Changing philosophy?
Yes, the whole thing. Is this Nick's? Like Nick, Nick hired the coach. They put it out that Nick fired Patullo. This entire shift, is this Nick Sirianni trying to put his team in a better position to elongate his career and his, stay as head coach? Is this an organizational thing?
It's a difficult question to answer because nobody's going to be honest about it. But, if you ask me my opinion, if you had sodium pentothal, if you had truth serum, I do not think that Nick would have went this direction. That's just my thought. That's not, but I've tried to explain over the years that I think he's more politically savvy than somebody like Doug Peterson. I think he sees things before they happen, before they unfold, and I think he gets ahead of it. So, I do think he hired these people, but I think he knew he had to fire, and he hasn't fired anybody technically. I think he knows he had to move on from certain people, and that's just not that he wanted to do it, but he was politically savvy enough to know he had to do it because at some point it would have been declared. I don't think it had to be declared because he got ahead of it.
The coach with the best resume, the coach with more experience than all of them, the coach who has been
the coach who beats them most of the time. He didn't beat Kyle Shanahan, so
I'm talking about Stoutland. I mean, I still can't get over Stoutland. I mean, he's the guy that has all the experience. He's the guy. He was like the adult in the room. He was the one that made me feel comfortable with the way everything was going because he was the constant. And now you alienate him. John, I'll tell you what, I don't care if it's the owner or if it's Nick. They better be right. I mean, now Jeff Stoutland's out the door in favor of a 33-year-old OC. Well, I hope this guy knows what he's doing.
Well, you can't run the Shanahan offense with Jeff Stoutland. So, I think people have to look inward. What do they want? What do they really want? Now the Eagles were going to bring him back as the offensive line coach and take away that run coordinator responsibility. And I shouldn't use take away because he kind of, from what I understand, he kind of gave it up. And by the way, that's, another thing Jeff said, which we talked about, the players were on board with that, by the way. Because you how many times you hear Jordan Mailata talk about being under center? We need to be under center more.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of the players were on board with that because they knew it wasn't working. People were selling out. People understood, well, if Saquon Barkley's offset in the gun, he doesn't have options, and they just, basically the chaos theory, and started upsetting things behind the line of scrimmage. And if you want to be honest, the running game significantly improved after they started going under center. Not nearly what it was the year prior, but so it did improve. And Saquon Barkley was a lot better. Remember how bad he was early in the season, the first 7-8 games, which is 3.4 yards per carry.
Yep.
And then it significantly improved. Again, to me, a lot of that had to do with the injuries to Landon that we're talking about, to Cam, to Lane eventually. So there's more than just going under center as the magic fix, but everybody was pretty much on board with they had to do that, at least more. And Jeff doesn't want to do that. So
all right, so it's changing directions. Where do you think the pressure lies the most? Is it on, Nick Sirianni? Do you think Jalen Hurts is on the same type of hot seat as Nick? Do you think Jalen has a longer leash than Nick would? I mean, it feels to me like they would blow Nick out before they'd blow Jalen out. I mean, I could see them
Yeah, I mean,
and the whole offensive staff and then recreating another staff with Jalen still. I could see that.
they're both on the clock, but Nick's is a shorter clock, shorter time frame, no doubt. But Jalen's now on the clock as well. Jalen's got the same message, get on board or we're going to go in a different direction. It's just much harder to go in a different direction at quarterback than it is at head coach. Because A, it's tougher to find a quarterback. B, you have more financially invested in a quarterback. And the quarterback is more high profile. So, think about if at this point, you have the two dueling camps, the Jalenites and the people that hate Jalen Hurts. But think about the Jalenites if you decide to move on from Jalen Hurts. That would be quite the scene. So it's much more difficult to move on from a quarterback who's had success than a coach who's had success. And that's why Nick will be the first to go if they don't fix this thing. But Jalen will soon to follow.
You think there's a chance that this is the last year for both of them?
No, I don't think it would be the last year for.
Like it would be the last year for Nick if it doesn't work.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yes, agreed.
And then it's really getting close, and you're basically wasting a season if you fire Nick Sirianni, bring in another completely new coaching staff, and what are you going to do? Go back to the old method?
No, that's not what they're going to do.
So
it's Sirianni stiff, and they're going to.
It's basically a race to find the succession plan at quarterback at that point.
Which means Howie Roseman would be doing work on that already.
Yeah, well, Howie's talking about everything all the time. Like, the Joe Shane, I always talk about it, this stuff, and why nobody wants to go on off-season Hard Knocks because they fucked him by editing that incorrectly.
Wait, what part of it was
Joe Shane talking about moving on from Saquon?
And yeah, the famous clip.
Clip. And they edited it just incorrectly. And they kind of fucked him. Not to say he made the right decision. Well, I did. I did think he made the right decision for the Giants, but because Saquon, what's he going to do for a shitty team?
Yeah,
But they edited it completely. It was abysmal. It was unprofessional the way they edited for the clip, for the hype part of it, and then they showed the actual clip, which was more in context, but nobody pays attention to the actual clip, and the damage is already done. But if people heard the discussions and the way they talk about their favorite player, I mean, everything is broached. And that's why nobody wants it on camera. Everything is broached.
Right. They're doing a job. That's what they got to do. They're paid a lot of money to do a job. I mean, that's obvious.
Exactly.
It just feels
they're not sitting there glazing all their players. They're like,
no, but there is some favorites, right? I mean, there is some people that have longer leashes. There is some people that are the golden boys, whatever you want to call them. I'm not.
I mean, there's legitimate superstar players who are like, well, I'm not. That guy's in the prime of his career. And
don't you think Jeffrey Lurie thinks that about Jalen Hurts?
No, not anymore.
Really?
No.
I've always been under the impression that Jeffrey Lurie really likes Jalen.
I think I do think he really likes him.